Welcome to the Idaho Business Podcast, the only Idaho podcast focused on providing profits for Idaho people. If you love our state and love small business, you are in the right place. We interview local legends, learn business, and have way too much fun doing it. You're listening to the Idaho Business Podcast with your friend, host, and all-around great guy and owner of New Clean Commercial Cleaning, Spencer Ward.
All right, everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Idaho Business Podcast. We are here with Ben Bosworth. This guy is a serial entrepreneur over here. He's probably too what's the word? Humble to admit that. But this guy's he's a pusher and a shaker over here, and he's doing wonderful things for the community. He's buying real estate, and he's doing some great things with some businesses. This guy was, he grew up in Downey, went to Malad High School. From a other guy that grew up in another small town in Aberdeen, Idaho. We were rival schools. I won't get into what they did to our goalposts after they beat us in high school. That's a story for another time.
I had nothing to do with any of that stuff.
It's a different time, I'm sure, but we're happy for you to come on the show, Ben.
Hey, I appreciate you, Spencer, for having me on here. I've been looking forward to it. Heck, we were going to do this a year ago, and then everything kind of got crazy, went nuts, and then seeing you again, I'm like, yeah, let's do this. I've been looking forward to it. Yeah,
no, that's great. Well, before we get too far into it, I always forget it, and my people always say, you're forgetting to do your sponsorship thing. So I always have to mention, we are sponsored by Health West. These guys are a great organization. It's all throughout Idaho. They're continuing to expand, doing great things for the people in Idaho. So if you want to give them a holler and give them a try, look where they're closest to you. And they're in these other areas like Idaho, Aberdeen. They may be I think they might even be in the Malad area. I'm not sure, but
I'm not sure if they are.
They like these smaller areas, but they're also in the Pocatello. I think these other regions as well too. But give them a Google, find it. Give them a chance with your loved ones and see what they can do for you.
Yeah, that's a great company, man. They do a lot of cool stuff. I thought about going over and seeing them. They deal with a lot of OCD stuff, ADHD. So I'm right there, man. I mean, I'm gonna go over there and check them out.
Yeah, they're great. Yeah. So, well, cool, Ben. Maybe if you share something that's a little known fact or an interesting fact about yourself that maybe listeners don't know.
Let's see. Most people that do know me will know this, but most people won't. I hate cheese with every ounce of me. And if they never made it again, the planet would be a much better place because I'd be a much happier man.
That's awesome. That's funny. I like it. Okay. So you've got your hands in different things. You're in real estate. You're in two different types of business. You're in barber shops. You have some vape shops. What really got you started in the business world, and what made you take that step?
Man, going back to, I would say 1980. My grandparents, growing up down in Downey, they had a carpet cleaning business, and I used to go with them during the summers. And watching my grandfather and my grandmother, back then, heck, they seemed like they were 80 years old, but I'm sure they weren't that old at that point, but they used to go all over Southeast Idaho. It didn't matter. Being based in Downey, they would go to, Malad, Pocatello, Soda Springs. I just remember being with them, and they just would get up in the morning, they'd go together. My grandpa, he'd crack open a Coca-Cola and take a sip on it, set it in the console, and then my grandma would pull out a little styrofoam cup and she'd take half of it. And I'm like, that would be my first lesson on marriage. She gets half right there. So growing up around that, kind of taught me some good values on working. My father, he owned a gas station down in Downey. It's the Mart now. So now when I'll pull in down there, that just kind of brings back some memories of being a young kid and down there around that and being around those cars. And I developed a love for cars, and then we moved over to Malad. Straight out of the gate, my mom, she started a little deli there. We called it the Main Street Deli. And then she worked her guts out 7 days a week, from sun up to sundown. She was there, never stopped. And so it just kind of felt like I was set on a path early watching these guys and their work ethic,
Sure.
And then graduated from high school and I went to work for Lazy Boy Chair Company. And that was about an hour drive from where I lived, so we had to get up at 4:00 in the morning and go work all day long and come back and just worked hard, from the moment I graduated high school. I was doing that. 2 weeks after that, I moved out, had my own place, and then that kind of set the foundation of, all right, I've got bills now, and so learning that from an early age was pretty cool, wow. And just having that grind kind of put in me from the get-go.
I like that. That's, I don't, without getting too far distant from our episode, it's interesting because you see that type of mentality where, you're grown up and your whole family was just these entrepreneurs, they're hustlers, they're grinders. And, you see this new generation, being raised up and they're, a lot of their families are hustlers and grinders, but then now you're starting to see some of these kids living at home a little longer. They're living at home. They're like, hey, you know what? Let's stay and have some free rent and all this kind of stuff. You wonder where that can disconnect or something started to happen.
That's my kids, they all kind of boogalooed pretty fast, somewhere between 18 and 20, they all kind of moved out and started doing their own thing. Probably a lot of that is because they all work for me.
There you go.
3 of my boys work for me on the outlaw side. 2 of my boys on the outlaw side. My daughter works for me on the outlaw side. My son Holden, he works upstairs in the barber shop. And so they're probably like, you know what? We already spend too much time with Dad. So we got to move out. Got to have a little time,
and maybe that's could be a big reason because, growing up, my father and family owned a fuel business as well. And we worked in it, and I felt the same way. I'm like, man, I'm constantly around these guys. Going to college, I drove fuel truck, and that's how I got through college and all those years. And then I'm like, man, I'm constantly around these guys. Like, I gotta get out. I gotta get out. As much as I love them, maybe that was part of it. So that's interesting.
Yep. Yeah, my dad, his gas station. You're talking about fuel business. This little throwback to him. This is his logo from his store back in the 70s, and it's Claude's Amoco, American Standard. So
we were an Amoco station back in the day before they got bought out, and then we became a Sinclair dealership. So that's interesting.
Very cool.
We used to be Amoco in Aberdeen, and my grandpa Ward started that. So
very neat, very cool.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah, I had a little service station. I grew up, changing oil in cars, and that was my thing in high school. I changed oil in cars. I detailed cars, and when they weren't busy, that was my little side hustle. I'd start detailing cars when there's no oil to change. I had to bring cars in and do that, and then be helping people. It was my job every time the elderly came in or a woman came in. That was my job. I had to go do full service, wash their windows, pump their gas. That was the deal for our station. So yes, so that was a fun upbringing for me. So
very cool.
All right, well, cool. I always like this is a good question. I don't ask it to a lot of people, but what's your favorite part? Because you have your hands in different parts of business, but what's your favorite part about just being this business owner?
You know what? I kind of had this discussion with somebody the other day. And it kind of goes back to that thing that you always hear, like, if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life, right? And I don't know if I necessarily agree with that. It's just, it just kind of becomes, it's what I do.
Yeah.
Right. You get up every day, you take off and you just start your day and you start going. Right. And so it just becomes part of you. It becomes what you do. Right. I don't get here at 7 and leave at 4 or whatever, you know.
Yeah.
I have kind of a crazy thing where if I've got people in the building, I almost feel like I have to be here, right?
Yeah.
Even though the barbershop's open till 7, I'm not always here until 7. But when I go upstairs and I'm like, oh, I really should say goodbye to my guys, but I don't even want them to know I'm leaving, you know.
Okay.
Even though they get here about 3 hours after me, you know, because sometimes I'm here at 6 a.m., sometimes at 7. But I'm always the first car in the parking lot, you know. Try to be one of the last ones out of here. It's just, I just love that, man. I love being here and I love being part of my team, you
Sure.
know. You hear that all the time where people are like, all right, what is different about working the business or working in the business or on the business, right? And so I just, there was a point where you kind of have to step away from working in the business and work on the business. And so I was upstairs and I was trying to be a barber so I could be right there with them guys because I enjoy it and I love it. And I love to sit and BS with everybody that comes into the shop. But in order to make it better for my guys, you kind of have to step back, right?
I think that's important, creating that culture, creating that camaraderie within your companies. And that's what keeps people, staying. When you hire barbers, they want to stay longer. You hire people to run your desk at your vape shops, they want to stay longer. They feel like
all my guys at the vape shop. I have one guy, he just had his 9th year with me. I've got another one on his 10th year with me. Another one with his 7th year with me. And so, you know what, we'll just try to give them a reason to stick around, try to pay a little bit better. They're not outside doing that really hard manual labor. Thank God there's people that are out there doing it, but
yeah, for sure.
So try to take care of them so they'll take care of me.
Yeah, I agree. That's important.
Yeah. That's it. What's the best thing about being a boss? I'm not the boss. The people out here that are running your stores, they're the boss. They're telling me what they need to be successful here, right?
Exactly.
So they're my boss.
Exactly. That's, I was reading Extreme Ownership by Jocko, and he talked a lot about that. People, when he goes into different businesses and he's hired to go and consult, these CEOs, he's had a lot of CEOs and like, hey, I can't wait for you to whip these people into shape for me. Yeah. It's like, well, if that's what you're looking for, dude, you might want to find someone else because that's what I'm not here. If they have that preconceived notion that in the armed forces, that's what was happening. He's like, no, that's not how we lead. It might work, temporarily just because they don't want to get fired. So they'll do what you do. They'll do what you say. But if you lead and empower people to make those right decisions, he's like, that's the way to go. He's like, when we go to encroach on a property that we're, invading or taking over, it's like, I don't have to micromanage everything because I know that group, they know their job. I know that group's gonna come up from this part. I know that group's gonna breach over here. He's like, they do what they do. I don't have to do over here. I don't have to be over here, conducting the orchestra of all these different events. Like you train them up and they're going to do their job. So I like that.
You want to find out in your organization really fast, the guys that are leaders, just go out there and tell them, hey, this is kind of what I want, and turn and walk away and let them figure it out. Let them do it their way, put in their process. And then if you have to go out and tweak it, then you can go out and do that, but those guys that are willing to just dive in and take that initiative, like, okay, I'm going to set this up here, set that up there, being in retail like I am, let them, they're the ones they're your front line, speaking with your customers. So if they're going to your front door and turn around and take a look at your cases, all right, this doesn't look good. They can set it up,
Exactly. So. No, it's smart. Start with the outcome. Hey, this is the outcome I'm looking for. Go ahead, go after it, and then, for us, I love to do that. This is the outcome I'm looking for. These are the rules to go forward with. And the rules are just my core values of the company we have. And, and they know those core values. Those are the non-negotiables, and they just go after it. So as
Yeah.
long as they're not being dishonest and that kind of stuff, and they're working together, they're just going after it. So
That's awesome.
it's like you said, it's fun to see, to get some one of those people in your organization that just take the ball and run with it.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It's sometimes I feel like and I'm guilty of this, Ben. Sometimes I get in the weeds of like, oh, I've got to spell out everything, like step one.
Oh,
Like,
I'm the worst.
this is how you cut someone's sideburn. Step two, this is how you do it. This is how you wash their hair. But if you hire someone with the right core values in mind, that share your core values and just gets it,
yeah,
they're going to do it the way you want it done.
Yep.
And those and the people that you think that have to spell it out for, they're not going to do it anyways. They're not going to look at that plan. So they're just like, so.
Yeah, I struggle with that, and that's probably one of my biggest downfalls is, like, we'll say with the barbers, right? I'll walk up and they'll be like, what's the difference between a mustache and beard trim or just a beard trim add-on, right? So beard trim add-on would be guy comes in, gets a haircut, and we just kind of shape it up and off you go. Where mustache and beard trim, they're getting the hot towels and the whole treatment, right? And so I'll like explain it just like I did there. Next thing, I got to go do this next thing. And then 20 minutes later, I'll look over and I'm like, oh, that's a beard trim add-on. Why is he shaving that guy's face? Because you didn't train him right, and that's on me, but I'm like, I already told you, you should know already, even though you've been here for 8.5 minutes, And so that's a hard thing that I kind of deal with too, because I'm just like, let's go. Let's figure it out. Yeah. I expect you to do that too. And that's tough, Yeah.
And it's true. And there's a fine line. Like we are good at, like, anytime I feel like, okay, I'm going to train someone on how to do this. Like, even I have virtual assistants that help me with my online stuff. Anytime I'm like, okay, this is how you do this and this and this within my organization online, I'll literally record my screen and walk through it and audibly give them instructions. And then they have that going forward. Same with going, like, because we're in the cleaning industry, we'll have people, walk through, how to clean a toilet and so we videoed one time, and then we make all those videos, accessible to these people when they're hired, and we expect them to be watching it and be trained on all that. Yeah. And if they don't get it within the first 2 weeks, we're like, all right, you're not caring enough. You're not taking the time to do this kind of stuff. Like, you're not going to continue with this, because the likelihood of you continuing to go down the same road is very high. It's not going to, you're not going to just all of a sudden flip the script and be like, hey, I'm going to be this perfect employee now. No, you're just going to continue to crap the bed on us. So it's hard to kind of be like, oh, you know what? This one needs to be trained up. This one, he can be saved a little bit, or she can be saved. And then this person is we need to cut the cord on.
Yep. At the barber shop, we have a lot of kids that are fresh out of barber school, And so you know how it is when you go to school, they'll teach you some of the stuff. Sure. And then you get your certificate, your degree, whatever. Well, now the real deal, just walk through the door, right? Yeah. And so I kind of enjoy that. I love showing these guys little tricks and tweaks on people's hair and how hair lives and stuff, and being able to show that to these guys. And like, wait, at school they said you cut here, and you cut here, and then off you go. Like, next thing you know, they got rooster tail. Well, let me show you how you kind of take care of that, And so
that's interesting.
I love that part of the job, being able to show these kids some of that stuff.
That's cool.
Yeah. No, and I also had a guy that was a barber for 45 years named Bruno. What an amazing guy. And I would sit and watch this guy because his hands were so fluid. He cut, and everything had a purpose, right?
Yeah.
I learned so much just from watching him, that was super cool. And now I can pass that on to them. And I always throw out, no, I learned this from Bruno. So Bruno's a super cool cat,
That's cool.
Yeah. And that's just how it is with everything. You learn something new every day,
Yeah. No, that's great, man. I love it. What's your biggest frustration that you kind of find yourself dealing with throughout the days and weeks?
It's a new thing. And I hope I don't get toasted for this, but it's do you have mental days at Is that something that somebody calls in and says, I have a mental day?
Yeah, I've noticed that. That is a new thing. That's something when I first
I've
had it, I'm
never,
like, oh, I've never
yeah,
seen
then
that.
and then as a business owner, you're like, I just want to be like, no, what are you talking about? But then as a business owner now, you're like, I don't know if I can say no. Can I say no to that? I don't think I can.
Yeah, that's a tough one. And then you also some of them have doctor's notes to back some of that stuff up. So you're just like,
Yeah,
okay. So
yeah,
it's interesting. The way we handled, honestly, on that type of situation is just like if that becomes a continuing issue, that even if they're continuing to be sick, just for me, I'm like, okay, if you're just missing work continually,
yeah,
I just take it that way. I'm like, maybe you need to find a better opportunity that's just going to fit better for your schedule.
exactly.
Like, I don't take it personally. I'm like, hey, I think you need to find a better opportunity that's going to fit your schedule better because we need people that can show up. It's nothing against you. We just need people who can show up.
That's I almost want to get to the point, because I'm like you. I want somebody that wants to be here. You applied for this job. Now I expect you to come and be here. And I explain or I understand that life happens sometimes,
Sure.
But like you said, if somebody's constantly, I need a mental day. I think like my first question on my new interview process will be define mental day. And if they can just lay it out, that might be.
Sure. Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah. That's a new one. And I honestly don't know the full answer or the correct answer to that. So yeah, you're right. I don't know the right answer without getting us both burned on that. But that's
exactly.
maybe we need to get an HR person in here and have another discussion with someone like that
We'll just get all the entrepreneurs that we know and be like, all right, we're having this clarification day. Hopefully it's only about a half hour deal. We can have lunch or something like that. And all of us new or all of us old business owners can figure out some of this new stuff,
That's true. But in all seriousness though, I really do. It comes down to like, hey, it's either you're going to show up or you're not. Like, I get it. You're going to be sick and things are going to happen here and there. And like for our companies, like we have already 85 people that work for us throughout 6 different cities. Yeah. And we get things happen, especially, we're really careful and caring about like, hey, your daughter fell off a couch. You got to take her to urgent care. We got you.
Yeah, I got that.
Family comes first. We got you on that. But it's stuff like that. It's like, hey, I need a day like this, and it's 30 minutes before your shift begins. Then we got some problems.
Yeah, that's the touchiest time of my day, about 8:30 to 9 o'clock when I start seeing the alarms getting triggered. Like, all right, they're there, and then at like 9 o'clock, we made it. We're off and running today.
Exactly, and and we have contingencies in place and people that are willing to they're not always people scheduled every day, so we have some people that can fill in, but just like, you're right. We need people that can work, and when we hire them, when we interview them, we always say, hey, we need you to have the availability to be scheduled Monday through Friday, and we expect you to work at least one weekend a month, and we lay it out so there's no surprises. So,
and I think that somebody that's thinking about getting into business that has never done business before, that's just something that you need to kind of think about as well as you're preparing to open up your business or whatnot. Like, okay, I can probably get by if I just had one guy.
Yeah, no.
Unless you're the other guy and are willing to dive in, you need more.
People are, they go into business, and I think we all did, with a perfect world scenario in their mind. Got one guy run the cash register, one person doing this. Okay, that's in a perfect world, it works. They don't live in a perfect world. So, well, that's good.
At this stage of my journey, and going back to when you first started business, being a young guy, because this started way back. I had a trucking company for 17 years before I even had Outlaw and EFN. You go into business as a young kid and you're like, I'm going to be a business owner. That means I'm going to make $1 million. I'm going to have a house that's ridiculous and I can travel. And then as you kind of get cruising along, and now in my hitting 50 years old, like, you know what, I kind of love the house that I have, and this is kind of nice. And I can go to the fridge and I can open up the door and there's food in there, right? And I love my car. That's wealth and rich right there for me. And so it's now at this stage of the business, everybody that works for me, that is my goal. I don't care if I make a penny more than I'm making now, as long as I can go to the fridge and get some food. Now I need to make sure that all of these guys that have trusted me to put butts in the chairs upstairs or walk through the doors of Outlaw, make sure that they can go to the fridge and open it up and there's plenty of food and their gas in their cars and stuff. That's, for me, that's the number one goal at this stage of my life, to make sure that those guys are being able to take care of those who are expecting them to take care of them, like their kids or wives and whatever. And so
I love it. I'm just starting to read this book called The Psychology of Money. And I would recommend it. I'd recommend it to anyone who's listening, because but it has to do with what you're just talking about. You know, you want people to make money, but it's also about wanting people to keep money and how to keep money and how to maintain that and how to understand money. And it's been interesting so far. I've only towards the beginning, middle of it, but it's been a good one. So I'm gonna check that out for sure. Yeah. All right, let's get into the lightning round here. The lightning round is sponsored by one of our companies. Well, I'll say both: New Clean Commercial Cleaning and Commercial Cleaning Services over in Idaho Falls. Give us a call at 208-254-7070, and if we can help you with any janitorial needs, let us know. And if you tell us that you heard about us on the podcast, we'll give you one free service for free, something that's catered to you that's going to really add value to your life. All right, Ben, we just talked about a book, one of my favorites right now. Obviously, I'm not done with it, but is there a book that you've read or a tool or a software you've used that just really been a big game changer for you?
So I have two books, and one's a business book, and the other one is just push yourself, right? So you've probably heard of it. It's by David Goggins, Can't Hurt Me, right?
Okay. Yeah.
Yep. He talks about all of us have a little bit more in us. We all kind of stop at 40%. If you just go past that, man, you can go a long ways, right? And so that was an amazing book, super cool. Another one that I'm reading right here on my desk called David vs. Goliath, and it is by a guy named David Garofalo. He owns a cigar shop out in New Hampshire, but it is in retail, how to take on the online giant, right? The online monster. What can a small brick and mortar store, not necessarily cigars, it applies to everything, kind of do to battle that online giant, right? And in a nutshell, it's customer service. And so those are two books that I'm really enjoying right now.
Awesome. Well, thanks. Those are two good ones. Good ones to recommend on those ones.
Heck yeah.
Okay. What biggest myth business owners need to know the truth about?
The money is yours. It's not yours. It goes in that account. It has somewhere else to go, and not necessarily your bank account. So if a business owner is thinking he's going to be, man, look at all this money rolling in. No, you need to know that it has to go back into the business forever. And it just keeps going in. You can pull little slices out, but it's not your money. It's somebody else's.
Yep. And watch out for Uncle Sam's money. Don't touch his. Don't touch his.
Yeah. He has his own bank account that you just put money in.
That's right.
And you just send it out. You're not 100% sure why. I mean, they're telling you reasons, but you're just like, all right, there you go.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. It's smart. Okay. What's one question I should have asked that I didn't, and what would be your answer?
Let me think. Well, that's kind of a tough one. One that you didn't ask. All right, I'll tell you. Moving into the future, I have a couple of things that I want to do. One is with the real estate side of life. Right now, I have 3 doors that I'm leasing, right? Eventually, I want to get to 10 doors in the next about 5 years. But what I want to do, and I've been wanting to do this for a lot of years, is I want to go back to Malad High School where I graduated and get the seniors all together and just tell them, man, whatever you do, don't stop. Don't quit. And it doesn't matter if you go to college or you do go to college, further your education, always self-educate, but just don't stop. That's what they say, that the difference is between those that make it and those that don't. Those that make it didn't stop.
Yeah.
So keep pushing and push hard.
I love it, dude. That's fantastic advice, because I was just talking with one of my partners on another project we're partnered on, and not in this business, but an app that we're doing, and we just had that conversation, like, hey, is it time to call it, or do we pivot? And I said, no, we're not calling it. We're gonna keep pushing.
Gotta keep on keeping on.
Yeah, because you never know. You've seen those illustrations where the guy's mining for gold, and he stops right when he's like a foot away from the gold pocket. And you're just like, no, you keep pushing, until it absolutely, you get to an absolute cliff, and you're like, okay, there's nothing more I can do. Then but
and I'll say one more thing too. And this is something I learned from an entrepreneur back in the 90s. Very cool guy. His name's Jesse James, owns West Coast Choppers. Have you heard of him?
Oh, yeah.
I remember hearing him say that he was going from Pasadena down to Long Beach, and the traffic was brutal, right? He was just sitting in traffic, and he looked over the person to the right, and they were just like, ugh. Looked to the left, same thing. So the next day he says, you know what? I'm going to get up a little bit earlier. Got up 4 o'clock in the morning. He says, man, what a nice drive that was. Drove right on into work. And he says, and I kind of got looking around. Them guys that are out there between 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, them guys are all driving BMWs and Mercedes. They're out there getting her done early. So I would say get up early, get your day going, and push hard.
I love it. Well, I appreciate it, Ben, coming on the show with us. Those people that are listening thinking, man, I like what Ben's saying, I want to support some of his businesses. What's the best way if they want to get a haircut from you, or they maybe want to go visit some vape shops? What's the information you want them to have?
Yeah, we have the barber shop, and people are calling it the effing barber shop. And I'm here to tell you, it's EF Finn, right? You've heard of JC Penney? All right. It's EF Finn. He's the coolest guy you'll never meet. All right. Okay. We're down here on Center Street in Pocatello. If you want to call and get an appointment, give us a call at 208-646-3198. If you're somebody that's struggling with smoking cigarettes, we've always held true. That's what our shop does, man. We just kind of help people transition away from smoking cigarettes. I smoked for 25 years. First time I tried a vape, that was the last time that I did it, right? And so come down and see us. We have 6 locations between Malad, Preston, Soda Springs, Center Street, out in Chubbuck, up in Idaho Falls. So there's plenty of locations that you can come by, and there's a lot of negative stuff about vaping in the media, right? I'll tell you what, my guys here are very knowledgeable. They'll answer any questions that you have, and do us all a favor, keep it away from your kids. Don't be buying for anybody under 21 years old. We do have kids that have come in to try to buy at the shop, but they were the ones that were only sent by the state. We ID everybody. So make sure you come down and speak to my guys. Come get a cool haircut. Moms, back to school time. Let's get those kids rolling, looking crispy.
Very nice. I appreciate it, man. And thanks for, again, being on the show with us. Loved the time.
Hey, for sure, Spencer. I appreciate it. I've enjoyed every moment of it.
Cool. And as always, those that are listening, I always like to end with, be happy, be grateful, and find opportunities to go out there and serve others. It's nothing's going to bring more happiness than that.
That's right.
Okay. Again, Ben, thank you.
Congratulations on spending a couple of minutes getting a little bit smarter, having some fun, and supporting the Idaho business community. If you're feeling the love, make sure to subscribe, rate, and review on iTunes, Stitcher, or wherever you are.